Hello and welcome back to another episode of the BitTech Modding Toolbox. Today we're going to be having a look at heat guns, an essential tool if you're looking to bend rigid acrylic or PETG tubing for water cooling systems. Previously we showed you how to bend the tubing itself, so today we're going to be looking at what to consider when looking to purchase a heat gun. Heat guns are a very simple tool. They're basically high power hairdryers. In DIY they're used for stripping paint primarily, and for modding we tend to use them for bending rigid tubing or for bending acrylic plates, or even heating up heat shrink on wires. So what kind of points do you want to consider when you're purchasing a heat gun? Well, for the most part, they're all made in China. They're all going to have very similar components on the inside, even if you're going from the very expensive right the way down to the cheapest ones. So really you've got to look at the feature sets. Like all tools, there's a huge range of options available for heat guns, starting with the very, very cheap options, which will only have the most basic controls. So this one doesn't even have heat control on it. It's just an on, off, simple as that. Moving up the line a little bit, we get some basic heat control. So this one has a switch that goes 1, 2, or 3. That's all you're going to be able to get. You won't be able to control exactly what temperature you're using, but you can work it out through use. Moving up the product stack, we get more advanced models such as this DeWalt. Now this one comes with proper heat control, which you can actually control with this dial. And there's several other models that are going to be the similar sort of specs. With this sort of product, it's much more applicable for use in home improvement, wallpaper stripping on a larger scale, and you should get many, many years of use out of it. I've had this one for about 10 years, hence its rather rugged appearance. Sitting in the high end of the market, we have products like this Bosch. Now this is the one that I use personally, and it has an LCD panel on the rear that allows you to have full temperature control, and it also means you can change the flow rate of the air outside of the element. Another benefit to an advanced model like this is that you can also save modes using the onboard memory. It also has a quick cooling element so that you can cool the tip down very, very fast. Well, that's all well and good, but how do you actually go about choosing which one's going to be right for you? Well, that's largely depends on what you're going to be using it for. So, namely, how long you're going to be using it for, how often, and what sort of use is it going to be. Realistically, if you're not going to be using your heat gun all the time, there's no real point in getting a really high-end one. You can get by on a cheaper model very, very easily. They have most of the features that you're going to need, and quite frankly, that's what I would stick to. Alternatively, if you think you're going to be using it maybe for more home improvement, or you're going to be modding a lot like I do, then a higher one is actually quite a good idea. The extra features are very, very useful, and I've certainly found myself being able to set the individual temperature to the tubing that I'm bending is very, very handy. For example, if I want to bend PETG tubing, that's got quite a specific melting point. Now I don't want to reach that point at all, so I can set my heat gun to 130 degrees Celsius, which is just above the glass point of the tube. That means that I'll be able to get nice, even bends throughout the length of the tube, and I don't have to worry about rogue deformations or bubbles forming, so it'll have a really nice run. The same applies for acrylic. That means I can set the temperature maybe to 230 Celsius, and I'll be able to get really smooth, consistent runs without worrying about the tubing destroying itself. Of course, another advantage of using a really high-end one is that you get more features for home improvement. So if you see yourself stripping a lot of paint, for instance, it's really quite a good idea to get a proper heat gun that's going to be safe for use for many, many hours. Because realistically, there's nothing stopping one of these for lasting many, many years. Another thing worth considering when purchasing a heat gun are the accessories. So I like to use these nozzles. This one's particularly useful for stripping paint and the general purposes like that. This one, however, I like to use for heat shrink because it directs the airflow in a way that won't melt the components around it. These simply sit on the top of the nozzle, like so. Now it's worth considering, when you buy these, they can be manufacturer specific. So if I take a look at this DeWalt, see that will clearly not fit on that. So you need to make sure that you buy one which is going to fit the heat gun you've chosen. That wraps up the major points to consider when purchasing a heat gun for PC modding. I hope you found it useful. Stay tuned for more.